This is Orlando Sentinel Now.
Hello, it's Tuesday, January 11th. Rich Pope here with Kate Santage and Scott Maxwell, and today we're going to talk about COVID testing scams and how to keep an eye out for that. Also, Florida legislators are back at session today, and we're going to find out where lobbyists have been throwing their money. But we're going to start here with Kate, and we're going to talk about COVID testing scams. Kate, it seems like we're already fatigued out from COVID, and now we have to keep an eye out for this. What does this mean?
So obviously there are these long lines that people are sitting in waiting to get tested, and it was probably bound to happen that these scams have popped up. It's both online issues, so people ordering tests online that aren't valid, and the caution there is to make sure that you're using one of the approved tests. You can go on FDA.gov and they have a list of approved tests. So make sure that you're ordering that and order with a credit card in case it doesn't show up. But the on-site issues are a little bit more complex. There are some pop-up sites around town, and you just really have to ask the right questions. They can be legitimate, but we've seen sites that have cropped up that are charging like $300 for tests, which are free at the government testing sites. Now, that's not necessarily, there's nothing wrong, there's nothing illegal with testing for a charge, but you want to make sure that you are getting what you pay for. Yesterday, for example, we heard of a site that was charging only $50, which some people might say, hey, that's okay because we've got to, sit in these long lines, time is money. So, maybe it's worth it to go to this pop-up site, but it was doing antibody testing. Well, antibody testing is not necessarily useful. It certainly isn't going to tell you if you are actively infected, which is what most people want to know, but they're signed to say COVID testing. And unless you ask the right questions, you're not going to know.
Right. It's interesting, too, is that this whole thing is just pretty much buyer beware. There's not exactly anyone going out to make sure these sites that are popping up are legit.
Right. They're not, governed by anybody. The county's not in charge of them. The state's not in charge of them. And, if they are a licensed practitioner, if they work with a licensed laboratory, there's nothing illegal about what they're doing. But people might go to them with the assumption that, I'm going to find out from this test whether I am infected with COVID, whether I can spread COVID currently, and that may or may not be true.
All right, tell us about how to, I don't know if say how to spot the fakes, but I guess what it comes down to is asking the right questions. Because as you mentioned, not exactly illegal to do this, but you have to know what you're getting into.
Exactly. So you do have to say, well, what kind of test is this? And what laboratory do you use? And, how soon am I going to find out what the results are? And how are you going to report those to me? Because if it's a pop-up site and the site moves, you're not going to necessarily be able to track that person down. So you want to make sure that they have a way to track you down. And be careful about what information you're giving them. For example, they said, don't give out your social security number to those places. If you're at a hospital, that's a different matter. If there are hospital-run COVID testing sites, and those certainly are legitimate. But, if it's a roadside stand with a sign that says COVID tests, I would say be very, very careful.
Yeah, what about as far as what individuals can do? Say you fall into this trap. Is there anything you can do?
Yes, you can report to the state's, it has a Consumer Protection Bureau. The number and the contact information is in the story, and you can see there that you can report online or give them a call and let them know so that the next person, doesn't have to go through this.
Right. All right. Well, good information there. As I said before, is if we don't have enough to worry about, now we have to keep an eye out for this one. Go ahead and read Kate's story right now and get some more information on that one. Appreciate that. All right, moving forward here to Scott Maxwell. So, Scott, Florida legislators are back at it today, and pretty much means lobbyists are done throwing their money at them. But it did happen previous to that, and you went through a column that pretty much showed where the money was going and what we can expect from the legislators this session. Tell us about it.
Yeah, Florida legislators like to put on airs, and they like to act like when they're filing their legislation and debating them, they will not be taking money from lobbyists. So they have a rule that says they can't take money once the session starts on January 11th, which is today. So naturally, both parties set up big fundraising sessions last night on January 10th. and they're inviting everybody who wants things from them. The Republicans actually called theirs last call. I guess they thought that was cute, like being at a bar, 15 minutes left to buy yourself a legislator. We don't know who actually cut checks last night, but what I decided to do to give readers a peek is I looked at the last 3 months of reporting from both parties, and what you'll find is a bunch of vested interests that really need things from legislators.
Yeah, we'll go through these. Looks like you broke them down. Gambling, that's the one that's probably up in the air right now. A lot of this is up in the air. Legal fights happening. What's going on with that one right now?
Yeah, so think about this. Think about all the problems that we write about low teacher salaries, public education, families with disabilities, the environment. None of that stuff gets a special session. They have never called, at least in recent years, a special session just for those issues. But legislators did call a special session last year for one purpose, and that was to give the Seminole tribe a new casino compact. And what the legislators did then is something that a judge said was unconstitutional. They gave them a statewide monopoly on sports betting. Well, the tribe appeared pretty grateful for that. And they were the single biggest donors to either party. They cut $250,000 to the Republican Party right after that special session, another $250,000. And then I guess just because, to sweeten the pot a little bit, another $100,000. And part of that seems to also be incentive because, as we mentioned, that compact has been challenged. And they want the legislators to keep on fighting in court.
Yeah, let's hit this other one that you hit on. Disney, obviously a big player in the state, even a bigger player as they begin to move their headquarters here to Orlando, Lake Nona area. What does this mean? Where are they throwing their money?
Yeah, they threw actually a good bunch of money at Democrats, and that's kind of unusual because Democrats in this state are a pretty feckless bunch. They have trouble winning. I mean, you could give them a 90-yard head start and a 100-yard dash, and I think they'd still probably lose on election day. But they do tend to have clout here in Orange County, which is a very blue area in Central Florida. And right now, among other things, there's a bill to try to diversify the way we spend hotel taxes on things other than just convention centers and Visit Orlando. People want to spend it on things like buses and transit and transportation, maybe cops. Tourism interests in this state have never liked that idea. So that's one reason they might want Democrats on their side. And I can't necessarily say there's a connection, but so far, no local Democrat in the Senate has been willing to co-sponsor that bill to diversify hotel taxes. Disney did not give a bunch to Republicans this last quarter, but they gave them about $100,000 in cash and $140,000 in theme park goodies in the year before, and they did that before and after the legislature exempted Disney from a social media crackdown. They just carved out this little exemption that said companies that own theme parks wouldn't be subjected to the same rules as Facebook and Twitter.
Yeah, interesting one there. And this one too, power companies. And the way you point this out is pretty much they're throwing their money at legislators to make sure they don't mess things up for them. How does this work?
Yeah, so most or many power companies enjoy a pretty profitable monopoly. As you're probably aware, you don't have a choice. So theoretically, with your power company. So theoretically, the state is supposed to regulate that. Well, the power companies don't want a whole lot of regulation. They also are not big fans of solar and are pushing a bill to try to crack down on benefits of having solar. And $100,000 seems to be the going rate. Both Florida Power and Light, Duke Energy, and TECO all gave $100,000 to the Republican Party of Florida. And I guess so the Democrats didn't feel completely left out. Duke Energy tossed $40,000 their way, sort of a buy yourself something nice.
Right. What essentially does this mean for individuals? Is it safe to assume that these are the items that will get highlighted during the session?
Yeah, I think so. And one of the things I asked readers to think about is just think about the three things I just mentioned where big money was involved. Power company regulation, gambling, and theme parks. I'm going to guess those probably aren't the top three priorities of most Floridians. And that's why things like public education don't get as much of attention. Teachers don't have $100,000 to cut checks. Families with disabilities who have been woefully neglected, as we've discussed on this show many times. There's a waiting list of 22,000 families with profound special needs where 40% of them have been waiting for 10 years to get services. Those families don't have big checks. So those causes get ignored, and usually it's the ones with big money who get all the attention.
All right, interesting one there. You can go ahead and read it right now on OrlandoSentinel.com. Scott Maxwell does a great job of laying that one out, as he typically does. All right, well, that's all our topics today. Appreciate you being with us. We're going to go ahead and push pause, but do want to point out, go to OrlandoSentinel.com/subscribe and support our work. We always do appreciate that. But for us, we're going to call it quits, Until next time, I'm Rich, Kate, and Scott. Everyone have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.
Watch Orlando Sentinel Now live every weekday at noon on our Facebook page and on